have talked about 3 different types of equations. And today we're going to talk about how to write equations, specifically linear equations. The 3 types we've discussed, or 3 forms, are slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where your m is your slope and the b is your y-intercept. We've also talked about standard form, or ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are integers, and a must be greater than or equal to 0, and a and b are both not 0. And we've talked about point-slope form, which is y equals, or y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where x1, y1 is a point on the graph, and m is equal to slope. So these are the 3 linear equations that we have talked about. So how do we write linear equations? Well, first, you've got to find the slope. Well, you can look at the graph and just look at the rise over the run, or you can find it from points, where you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can locate the y-intercept if you're given the graph, or you can pick a given point and put it into point-slope form, which, remember, is this one. Okay, or you can change it from point-slope form into any other form, such as slope-intercept, which would be this one, or standard form. So we can work from these 3 forms, moving back and forth between each other. Alright, so let's start with, if we're given the graph, how can we write the equation of a line? So if it's in slope, we want to put it in slope-intercept form. So here's our graph. So the first thing we have to do is find the slope. So if we look at this graph, remember we start with our slope. Here is our y-intercept, which is at -2. We're going to look at the slope. So from -2, we go for our rise over run. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So that means that our slope is climbing up 3 and over 1. From this point to this point. It went up 3, over 1. So that means that our slope is 3 over 1, or just 3. We've already said that our y-intercept is right here at -2. So that means that our b is equal to -2. So if we want to put it into the form of y equals mx plus b, we're going to write it like this. Y equals 3, plugging that in where the m goes, x minus 2. Even though this is a plus b, our y-intercept is -2, so we put -2 right here. So let's look at another one. From point to point, our rise over run is up 1 and over 2. So that means that our slope is 1 over 2, or 1/2. If we look for a point, we have the point right here of 2, 5. We have a point here of 4, 6. We're not looking for our y-intercept because we want to go into slope-intercept form, which, if you remember, is this equation. Okay, so we can pick either point. I'm going to choose this one. So my final equation would be y minus 5, because y minus y1, equals 1/2, which was my slope, times x minus 2, because that was the x-coordinate of the point that I chose. So from just reading the graph, I'm able to write both an equation in slope-intercept form and in point-slope form. This should be point-slope form. Alright. What if we're just given 2 points? We want to write the equation in slope-intercept form and in standard form. Okay, so here's our 2 points, -2, 6, and 5, 1. So first, we've got to find our slope. Remember, to find slope, we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's your formula for slope. So when we do that, we find that our slope is equal to 5 over -7. Your negative could go either way, top or bottom. Remember that we do rise over run. So if we put it up top, it tells us that we go down 5 and then over 7 to the right. Then we can pick either point. I chose 5, 1, and our slope of negative 5/7. So if we're going to put this into, and this is actually point slope form, it's going to end up being y, oh whoops, this is point slope, and then we end up in slope intercept. Y minus y1 equals negative 5/7 times x minus 5. Now, we can change this into slope-intercept form by distributing the negative 5/7 times everything in the parentheses. So when we multiply negative 5/7 times x, we get negative 5/7 x. Negative 5/7 times negative 5, we get 25 over 7. Now we have to add our 1 over here, because if we want to change it to slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, we have to move our 1 to the other side. So I can add 1 here, which just gives me y. We add 1 here. Since it's a fraction, we're not just adding 1, we're adding 7/7. Finding our common denominator, we get 32/7. So when we change this to slope-intercept form, it looks like this. What if I want to change it to standard form? Remember, standard form looks like this. Okay, so now I want to rearrange it so that my 32/7 is what stands alone. Or in this case, I'll end up with 32. And I want my x and my y on the same side. So I'm going to go back to starting with my point slope form. And then I'm going to multiply to get rid of my denominator. So I'm multiplying everything by 7. So I'm going to distribute the 7 to the 7, or to the, y minus 1, which gives me 7y minus 7. I'm still distributing all this, so I now have 7y minus 7 equals 5x plus 25. Now I can add 5x to both sides, which gives me 5x plus 7y minus 7. If I just add 7 on both sides, I get rid of my whole number, leaving me with 5x plus 7y equals 32. So I have transformed this equation to have all my variables on one side and all my whole numbers on another. So now I have gone from just having a point to having point slope form, to having slope intercept form, to having standard form. Okay. Let's do another example. Again, starting with 2 points, this time a little trickier. Let's find our slope. So we do, again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When we do that, we find out that our slope equals negative 1. Alright, so let's first put this in slope-intercept form. But to get there, we're going through point slope. So I'm going to choose this point and do y minus 2 equals negative 1 times x minus 1/2. Okay, so I've got to distribute this first so that everything is together. So when I distribute it, I'm going to get y minus 2 equals negative 1x plus 1/2. So now to balance it out, I'm going to add this 2 to everything to isolate the y. When I do that, I get y equals 1x plus 2.5. Or you could also write it like this. Alright, so now let's go back and put it in standard form, or ax plus by equals c. Starting back at y minus 2 equals negative 1 times x minus 1/2. Multiply to get rid of our fraction. So now I have 2y minus 4 equals 2x plus 1, because I multiplied everything by 2. Add 2x to both sides, trying to get all my x's and y's on one side. And now I can add my 4 over here to get whole numbers all on one side, which leaves me with 2x plus 2y equals 5.